Hello, everyone. Welcome to the seventh episode of Creative Writers and Illustrators. And I'm Shyamala Shanmugasundaram. And my special guest for the day is someone who has completed 25 years of writing picture books for children. She has won a whole lot of international recognition. I think the combination of awards that she won is absolutely commendable. And she's also a book editor and a freelance writer. Please welcome Sandhya Rao. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure having you here today, because today you complete 25 years of writing picture books. I mean, you've been publishing, right? Publishing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So she's also the first author to be published with Tulika Books, and Tulika completes its 25 years of existence today. And tell us something about your first book, Ekidoki, which is based on a Marathi folktale. I saw in the dedication that you have dedicated the book to both your grandmothers, and it's a Marathi folktale. So tell us what was your childhood like, and what were the stories which kind of drew you to the world of books?
Well, like a lot of children, I also loved to listen to stories and happiest when listening to stories. Luckily, I had two grandmothers who were always ready to tell me stories. There was just one big difference. My maternal grandmother, whom I call Lakshmi Aji, she had like a fund of her father himself was a great storyteller, apparently. So she had a fund of stories. And, of course, her stories were from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Tenali Rama stories. And to all of which she would add a lot of masala and, tell with much drama and widening of the eyes. And it used to be fascinating. Anytime I went to her and said, Aji, nam kate edu, Aji, tell me a story, she'd drop whatever she was doing and she would tell stories. My paternal grandmother, whom I call Aji Baji, all of us in the family call Aji Baji, she had a repertoire of one, and that was ek case wali, don case wali. You see, my dad's family is Marathi speaking and my mother's family is Kannada speaking. So hence, the Marathi folktale, ek case wali, which means girl with one hair, and don case wali, girl with two hairs. So when Radhika Menon, who the founder of Tulika and a good friend of mine, when she approached me and said, listen, I have some money now, so let's do children's publishing. We had been friends for a long time and we had always talked about, books for Indian books for children and things like that. So I just dropped what I was doing. I was working in Frontline then. And I just overnight said, okay, and, launched into this adventure with Radhika to work on the editorial side. And Radhika by then had already started working on a couple of picture books. One was a story, a text, a non-fiction text called Line and Circle that she had written. And that she was trying to get published. She was getting to published. And the other one was an alphabet book in Hindi by Bindiya Thapar. The third book was a book called Number Birds by Ranjan De. But the book that I contributed to the first 5 books published by Tulika was Ek Case Wali, Don Case Wali, which then I rewrote as Eki Doki, simply because it's easy to say, and and then kind of introduce the idea of word birds, so that the words Ek Case Wali and Don Case Wali are introduced in the text, and word birds explain what those words mean, like in this case it is, these kind of things. So yeah, so that's how it all started. And since to publish children's books, you need to have books, I would say that was how it started. Though the story of Eki Doki begins with Radhika's birthday. When I realized that she wanted to publish books for children, I kind of hand wrote the story and introduced word birds and cut out some pictures and stuck them and made a little picture book for her birthday. So that's how this book was born.
Wow, that's so sweet. So, did you do a lot of writing? I'm saying with regards to picture books. I know you're a trained journalist, so you're already writing articles. But did you do a lot of you know of writing when it came to children books, something which has not got published, or were you already published in magazines, or did you stick to reading a lot?
Well, I was always a very voracious reader from childhood. I continue to be a voracious reader. I can read anything, provided the first few pages hold my attention. That's the only criterion. And I can read on about anything as well,
Mm,
and
mm,
in any form, any genre. I mean,
mm,
I enjoy words and I
mm,
enjoy ideas.
mm,
I cannot say that I wasn't one of those children who constantly wrote stories and things like that. No, I always actually wanted to be a journalist. I fancied myself, quite a
mm,
bit. So I think I did more of that kind of writing, and was journalistic kind of writing. Occasionally, I wrote a story for a friend or, but that was not very often. So, in all honesty, I have to say I wasn't one of those who churned out stories. I was a better listener. I loved listening to stories, and that was my thing. I could listen to anybody tell a story. Even today, I will drop everything and sit down to listen to a story.
yeah. And I
So,
also know
yes.
you're a good storyteller because I've attended one session of yours at the Tulika bookstore.
Okay, actually, I have to correct that. I'm actually not a storyteller. I'm a story writer. I like to read aloud stories because for me, I'm very interested in getting children to read. So I like to
Yes,
then engage them in the process of actually reading. I believe that that
yeah,
helps
yeah,
make readers. So I'm not actually a
yes.
storyteller. In Tulika, very often I was called upon to play that role,
Yes.
not at gunpoint, but because we had no choice very often. But yes, so I wouldn't describe myself as a storyteller. I'm a sharer of stories, shall we say.
Yes, yes. So tell us something about Koloba. That was your second Marathi folktale with Tulika. So it has, in the climax scene, it has the fox burning its bottom. Do you think a book like that would get published today, especially when parents are very sensible about, a whole lot of issues about how we are portraying stuff, be it books or
Okay,
television?
this there's a little backstory to this book as well. Kolaba is a story that my husband's aunt, universally known as Bua, who lived with my husband when he was growing up and then lived with me and all of us. She would constantly tell the children in my husband's side of the family. And so, in fact, that book is dedicated to her. And uh, actually, in the story, as she told it, this fox comes and eats up the berries and actually shits all over the place. Okay. When we were publishing this book, Radhika said, no, we cannot say that. So I had to say, it spat out the seeds or made a mess or something like that. Today, none of this is considered, taboo. So yes, this thing, yeah, it is a little cruel if you look at it that he should burn himself on his bottom, but the story is told in a light-hearted fashion. So I don't think anyone should take it that seriously. It's not intended so
Right.
seriously. So yeah, you have to take stories with a pinch of salt. And I don't think any child after reading this story is going to burn other people's bottoms. This story too, this
Absolutely.
story too, I wrote and I hand drew and things like that. And Ranjan,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and when I write picture books, I like to. I cannot draw for nuts, but I see the pictures in my head, so I try to do something. Just use dashes of color, splashes of color, or something like that. So this too was done like that. And then Ranjan got this idea of doing it like a, using the collage technique.
Right. Right. Ranjani has done illustrations for many books of yours.
No, not
it has been a
not really.
the first 4 series, the series of 4 books.
No, only Eki Doki and Kolaba. These are the only 2. Mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us something about My Mother's Sari. It won an award, right?
It didn't.
So tell us something about the award. What the book was all about.
It didn't win an award, but it was recognized as what shall I say? It was recognized as worthy books, shall we say?
Right.
By the US Children's Book Council or something.
Oh, yeah, right.
Not really an award, more a recognition. And as a consequence, this book is available because it was published by the rights were bought by North South Books in the US. This book is available in libraries across the US and even in Canada. Yeah. So which is exciting actually to think that. And the sari is an interesting, well, in the West, it's an interesting object. Here we are kind of where we grew up. Perhaps not this generation, but certainly my generation grew up with saris and found many uses for our mother's saris, even while she was wearing them and while she was not wearing them. So yes, that's how the idea of sari. In fact, Radhika, it so happened that one day Radhika and I were talking and she said, you know what, I think we should do a book about a sari. And it was so strange because I had also been thinking about something like that, though I had not articulated it. So that's how that particular book came about.
Can you show the cover? Do you have it nearby?
I have it.
Can you just flip a few pages? I just love the way the illustrator has played with the sari and the illustrator.
So
Nina Samnani?
When Nina Samnani heard this idea, she said, "Oh, when we can actually use actual saris because India has so many wonderful weaving and embroidery and traditions, printing traditions, as far as saris go, no? So so it just lent itself to this.
Different saris from all across India.
Yeah, it was just kind of, there's even a kind of a recognition of the, what shall I say, the polyester.
Polyester, right.
So my friend is left.
Sorry, you said something.
I said nothing is left out.
Okay, nothing is left out, right. My Friend the Sea is also a book which received a lot of fame.
Yeah, this is My Friend the Sea. This book was written, there's a book that was published earlier called Suresh and the Sea. Photographs by the renowned photographer Sandhya Rao. The idea was to depict the lives of children growing up in different parts of the country. And that was the story of a boy called Suresh growing up on the East Coast, by the Bay of Bengal. And then when the tsunami happened, somehow I felt that we needed to update that story of Suresh. And that's how, this book came about. It takes off, it starts where Suresh and the Sea starts, and then goes into exploring what happens to a child, for instance. So even though the story is not about an actual child, it is a real story about something that has happened to a lot of children, and we decided to use photographs that were positive images and not negative images. So positive images of the sea, because I understood that many children had then got frightened by the sea because of the experience that they had had. So we wanted to use positive images and kind of build the story around that. That is Suresh. So this kind of is the extent to which it goes to show the the tsunami or the fury of nature, however you want to interpret it. And then in the end, you have the child returning to the sea, the sea which is.
It's a full art out there, right? I know you cricket. Cricket is also it's your favorite book.
Well, I won't say favorite, but it's a book that is precious to me.
Okay.
Because it talks about something that is so popular.
Absolutely.
And which is played everywhere. Any part of the country, you go on a train, you will see kids playing all over the place, whether it's on a terrace or on a narrow strip of land or on the street. So this kind of is an ode to that. And to the fact that anybody can play, everybody can play. That's what the text also, whether it's women playing or visually impaired who are playing, whether you're playing in Andaman Islands or wherever else, that's the idea. And the fact that sport, and in cricket in particular, can bring people together. That's the whole idea. So yeah, it's a bilingual. So languages.
You also written picture book biographies, right? And Zakir is your second one. You had the Gandhi book earlier, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's not a biography.
It's not a. I wouldn't exactly. Neither is Zakir. I would just classify them as non-fiction stories about people. And because how can you encapsulate in 24 or 28 pages the entire?
So Zakir and his tabla, there are so many living personalities. Why did you choose Zakir Hussain? What appealed to you?
One is he's he's a wonderful musician, and he plays. He has this very effervescent personality. He is a son of Allah Rakha. He comes from a family of his brothers. All of them play the tabla. And he, in a sense, symbolizes also the coming together of different cultures, in a seamless manner. And he's a very attractive personality. The story of his life is attractive. So, and there are others like that, I suppose. But we thought it would be a good idea to share the story of an actual practicing individual, a musician in this case, which would serve as an inspiration to a lot of readers, young readers. That was the reason. And he happens to be a personal favorite, so that this book actually was commissioned by Tulika.
Okay. Priya Kurian has done wonderful illustrations for the book. Absolutely. They're so beautiful. So did you get to interact with him? Did you have to seek his permission before you got the book rolling?
No, it was a commissioned thing, you see. So it was Tulika that asked me to do. So I have not met him. I have heard him. And I have listened to his music. I've listened to his interviews. I've watched the film that was made on him. I've read the book about, about him by Bundi Kabir. And so I've done a lot of research around him, but no, I have not had the privilege of meeting him.
So what went into the book was based on your research. You didn't get to meet him, so it's not a necessity that you seek permission from the living personality. I'm just curious about.
I do think it's a good idea to get permission.
Okay.
In retrospect, I feel yes, but. It's this this is not like, it's not the story of his life in detail in that sense.
Yeah, it's not a proper autobiography.
It's not. So it's not a biography in that sense. No, it's just a few anecdotes about his growing years.
Yes.
To sort of give children a taste of what it was like for this famous musician growing up, being a child, that kind of thing, just sharing of those experiences. But yes, I do think it's important to get permission.
So was the book sent to him? Did he get to read it? Any feedback from him?
I know that the book was sent to him, but I don't know about anything else after that. I hope he liked it. And I hope he, because it's done in all humility. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. So some of your books have rhyme in them. So does rhyming, how did you train yourself to do the rhyme? I mean, it's like something very natural because, you know, when you started writing 25 years ago, there were no writing courses which kind of focus on writing for children. And, you know, today we have a few, but that's not like, you know, we still don't have many opportunities to learn the art of rhyming or, you know, develop, polish your skills of writing for children. So how did you hone your craft?
well, I would say, speaking for myself, instinctively, and also from my reading and sharpening my, I mean, not consciously, but I do have a ear for apaswaram, the wrong note. You know, I can recognize the wrong note. I may not know what that is, but so whether it's music or whether it's prose or whether it's poetry, when something doesn't quite work, I know there's something that's not working, but I may not know what it is. So it's hit or miss. You work on it, you rework it, and you see if it works. So it is instinctive as far as I'm concerned.
You've written a wide variety of picture books. You know, what is your favorite kind of story? You know, what do you enjoy writing the most?
I like writing for very small children. And I find that it is challenging because you have to then, set aside everything. All your ego has to just, and you have to imagine yourself listening to that story, being a child. But you can only write as you are. You can only remember your childhood. You can't be or become a child all over again because there's too much water under the bridge. So a lot of it is again instinctive, and um, it has to ring true. I feel, if, I don't know how to explain it or define it. I cannot. So you have to find that right voice without the discordant notes and without your ego kind of slipping in. So you have to be pretty drastically objective about your writing and what you're saying. Very often I write something and I think, oh wow, it sounds great. Then I look at it in the morning and I think it's terrible and I tear it up. So that happens a lot. And I don't say that it happens it happens positively every time. It doesn't always work. And then somebody who is honest enough, you show it to someone who is honest enough to tell you to your face that it doesn't work. And it's a terrible blow to your ego when someone tells you that. So you sort of slink off into a corner and sulk for a while, and then you get out of that and you start reworking it.
Right. Do you have Granny's Eyes and Dosa book? Those are meant for. Do you have them
Yeah,
around?
I don't have them here.
Okay.
I have them in my shelf, but I haven't taken them out.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Okay.
Grandma's Eyes and Dosa,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those are two books for the younger ones, right? So,
Very good one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a book editor and an author, what do you think is your significant contribution to Indian children's literature?
I I would like to think that uh, I have helped some uh, writers find their voices. I value my work as an editor. I particularly value and enjoy my work as an editor because I love the process of creating. And there are wonderful writers, there are wonderful people, there are people with wonderful ideas, and they just need a little help
Right.
to get those stories across. And if I can help them in some way, do that to the best of their ability, there's no greater joy.
So, is there any book you wish you could write, but you haven't explored it because the market is not ready, or you think it may not be acceptable for any other reason, or lack of research or anything like that?
Well, I write when I feel I have an idea, a genuine idea, a solid idea.
Hmm.
I don't think, I don't consider the market and write according to what the market needs. I write what I feel I can write.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sometimes I don't know. I just explore things as they come along. So I don't have a kind of a long distance uh, plan, or, like, oh, by this date, I should write a book for a paperback, say, or I should write a book for adults. I don't have those kind of things. If I get an idea, and I'm excited by it, I work on it. So it's very much uh, living in the present and writing in the present.
You haven't explored writing for a slightly older audience. There have been like picture books, but not chapter books, middle grade, young adult. So, what is it that fascinates you so much about writing picture books?
Yeah, I think I like interacting with very small children and responding to their or imagining their world and responding to their emotional needs, maybe. And that's why maybe I feel that picture books allow you, for me, the best picture books are those that explore emotions. Not, it's not like uh, you know uh, slicing an emotion and examining every part of it, but making that emotional connect between a story and the child is very, very, in my view, very, very important. And in my view, that's also very challenging, because then you're saying that it can't be abstract, because the ideas, they're still too young to tackle abstractions. So through a simple storyline, how do you engage their emotions? So yeah, for me, I don't know, I find that fascinating. And it's also true that I have I've often tried. Sometimes you get an idea, you start working on it, and somehow it just doesn't work because you're not able to strike the right balance. So yeah, but I find that very, very fascinating to explore. And I feel that's important for a child to that emotional to making that emotional connect is very, very important for a child.
Mm. You've seen the Indian publishing industry grow, for the last
Yeah.
25 years. What do you think is the biggest change which has happened, over a period of 25 years?
Well, one big change is the increase in the number of the space that occupied now by independent publishers who are
Mm.
willing to take a chance, who are willing to take risks,
Mm.
and who are willing to publish, uh, you know, books on themes that have not been explored before.
Mm.
And the number of writers who have emerged, and the fact that earlier illustrators were always considered, illustration was not considered a profession. But I think the presence of these independent publishers has helped create a space for them as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a very big thing.
Mm.
Alongside, there has been greater awareness of the need to read, the need to encourage children to read. And I do wish that this spreads to adults as well. The need to read, full
Read,
stop,
yes.
not just for children, but for everybody. I think it will also calm down a lot of nerves and a lot of agitated people if they started to read.
Correct.
So these are some of the changes that I have seen. And I mean, among other, a couple of other publishers, I think Tulika was a trendsetter in making Indian languages, all Indian languages equally important by publishing this, picture books in several Indian languages at the same time, including English. Of course, NP has been doing it for a long time, but they are a government-supported agency, and their arms are really, long. Whereas it's not so easy. But publishers like Tulika, and Karadi Tales and Tara, they've all created their own space, their own, and explored that bravely, boldly, taking risks along the way, introducing so many wonderful writers and illustrators to our world, and making the world of children's books so miraculous today. I mean, I think there's been a sea change. Of course, the usual suspects, you still find the usual suspects, but if you have a discriminating mind, if the adult in question who's buying books for his or her child uses their mental faculties well, they will choose good books for their children rather than, the same old kind of thing, some of which is simply being churned out. Because there's a lot of material that's not of a high quality. And they may be packaged well, but the content is not necessarily great. So we have to be mindful of that. But what I would like to see more of is more children across the country, irrespective of which background they come from. I would like to see more of them reading in more languages, exploring languages, because I think one of the greatest strengths we have as Indians is our ability to speak, understand, read, write so many Indian languages. Everyone with man knows at least 2 languages, and several know very many more than that. So I think that's our greatest strength, and I'm afraid if we don't, I'm afraid that one day we might lose that ability.
So you speak 5, I think, more than that?
See, I'm one of those who's not afraid of trying to speak. I like the sound of words, basically, and wherever I go, I like to learn. I like to try to speak. I imagine I speak, but I know I don't. So I'm not self-conscious about making mistakes and things like that. I revel in trying to speak a language I don't know. So yeah.
So you must have received a lot of interesting feedback from teachers, librarians, children. So anything which warms your heart or tells you, like, this is the reason I should write?
Well, I mean, every children's writer will tell you that they've all, that some child or the other somewhere will say, Auntie, I like this book very much, that kind of thing. And you feel kind of humbled, you think, really this something is making such a difference to this child, it leaves you feeling humbled, actually, and kind of motivates you to stick with it and try and create more material for the child. Yeah, some children, so many people, so many of my fellow writers, so many people I know have said, how somebody has come to them and said that child goes to bed with this book under the pillow, or wants this particular story read all the time, or young mothers and fathers saying, I love this book so much, I read it, that kind of thing happens. And I think it happens with all children's writers, because favorites among books is such a subjective thing. Books are such a subjective thing, no? A book I love, you may not. So, and you have, because we come with all our experiences and our expectations. So yeah, I think every book has the potential to be the favorite of somebody or the other.
So most of your books have been through Tulika. Have you explored other publishers, or it's like you've been loyal to Tulika all the while?
Well, I started out with Tulika, working in Tulika, and started out because Tulika needed books to publish in order to become a publishing house. So that's how it all started. And I have really seen no need to publish. I'm not driven by the number of books published and things like that. However, I have been approached by a couple of people. And when somebody asks me if I feel I'm up to the task, I do it because I enjoy writing. There are these two.
11, that was your latest, you're part of an anthology?
Yeah, like Terry, the Energy and Resources Institute, they gave me 2 topics. They said,
yes.
Eat, Soil, Sun, and Think, Eat, Save. They just gave me the topics, okay? And they said,
right, okay.
So I said, okay. So these are basically environmental books, science-based. I'm not a science person, but I did a lot of research. And I thoroughly enjoyed the process. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And and for one of the books, in fact, I even created a game. Seed, Soil, Sun, you will find that in the center fold, there is a game that opens up. It's like the kind of snakes and ladders.
Wow.
Purpose, and with the sun in the center, if you can see it, sort of off center, like how orbits generally are. And the idea over here is to be the last to reach the sun, because you reach the sun, you know what happens. So you just you don't exist anymore. So yeah. So it was very, very challenging. It was very good working with this editorial team. They were very responsive. Yeah, you were talking about the latest contribution to a collection of stories about Bangalore.
Yeah. You grew up in Bangalore?
No, but I have lots of family in Bangalore and have been to Bangalore million times. So my story is actually set on the Brindavan Express. Chennai and Bangalore. So that's the idea. This is published by Intact. So the idea is to make Bangalore, the stories about Bangalore, familiar to children and others. I mean, although this is targeted at children, at young readers, I think it's a book that would hold the attention of a lot of others as well. So yes.
Right.
Yeah,
is there anything
else actively chase after other publishers, but if somebody asks me for something, I am happy to work on it.
Right. Are there any story ideas you think should be tinkered in future?
Ideas come and go. So, so you have to hold on to them. Yeah, there's never any end to things to talk about, right?
Right.
Yeah. So imagine everyone gets ideas. So imagine the number of ideas floating around in this universe. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here today. Yeah, it's been an absolute delight talking to you. We've reached the end of the session. Yeah, so viewers, do check out her book. Everything is available on Tulika's site. And yes, you can always visit your favorite independent bookstore and check out her other books as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.